Hello everyone. In the last class, we have studied about entities, types of attributes, relationship and relationship sets, and finally we have concluded with cardinalities, mapping cardinalities. In this class, we will be seeing some few concepts of ER model. We are extending the discussion of ER model. So here we will be focusing on participation constraints. Constraints means conditions. Okay. So let us see whether there are conditions in participation of a relationship and entity. So these participation constraints are divided into two, that is total participation and partial participation, right? So when we say that it is like entity is participating totally in the relationship. So it's specified, total participation specifies that each entity in the entity set must compulsory participate in at least one of the relationship instance. Okay, so whatever entity is present, it states that all the entities should participate in the given relationship. Hence the other name for this is mandatory participation. For example, if we have a course like a course that is available like CSE, each student should participate in CSE course. Okay, if there is one college, if there is one CSE course in that, if you want to become a student of this college, then you should enroll in course. Okay, so that is the relationship between student and course. The relationship name is enroll, right? So if I want to specify that there should be compulsory total participation, then it should be written with dark or thick line, or in some textbooks it will be represented with double lines. So here in this example they have taken that all the employees will be worked in some department. Okay, that means if you want to become an employee of this organization, then you should work in any one of the department. Hence the relationship is strong between works in and employees as well as works in department. Okay, this type of relationship is known as ternary relationship. Ternary relationship, where we are having two types of relationships. Right? Coming to partial participation. So what is this partial participation? So it specifies that each entity in the entity set may or may not participate in the relationship. So it is not compulsory that all the entities should participate in the given relationship. That type of participation is known as partial participation. So it is represented by normal straight line. Okay, normal straight line. So there is one point that is being present here whenever we are studying this. We need to understand how this is related with the cardinalities. If minimum cardinality is equals to 0, then it signifies partial participation. So if I specify something like cardinality between employee and managers, and if the cardinality is 0, then it specifies partial. 0 means it is not compulsory that everyone should participate. So it comes under partial participation. If minimum cardinality is equals to 1, then it signifies total participation. So these points you need to remember. Coming to weak entity. What is this weak entity? Actually, we are having entities divided into strong entity and weak entity. Strong entity is an entity set that contains sufficient attributes to uniquely identify all its entities. In other words, we have studied that a key is present for each entity. So a key, if there is a key that exists for strong entity, then we can say that a particular entity is strong. That means using that key to identify a record uniquely, if I can specify, then that type of entity is known as strong entity. So primary key or key should be present for that entity. Then what is this weak entity? Weak entity can have or it cannot have any key. Okay, so if I don't have key, how can I identify the record? So in order to depend or in order to identify a unique record, it depends upon another strong entity. In this example, dependents are weak entity and employee is strong entity. So how to identify or differentiate between these two entities? So in order to identify strong entity, generally, and it uses the entity symbol, that is rectangular shape. But what about weak entity? Weak entity are represented with thicker lines or double lines. In some textbook, it is represented with double lines. Okay, so here dependents are weak entity. So this is an example where employees are present in the company, but there are some policies that are applicable for their family members also. Do you think that their family members all get employee IDs? No. So if any one of the family member gets sick, they use the employee ID of the particular employee, his mother or father. If they fall sick, then they fall sick, then they uses ID of their father who is working in the organization, right? So using that, so all children's or wife, they do not get any particular employee ID, so they are called dependents. So there is no any particular ID for this. So this type of entity is known as weak entity, where these they depend upon strong entity. Who is strong entity here? Employees are strong entity. What is the key here? SSN, social service number, is the key. So when I consider weak entity, then the relationship also becomes weak. Hence, in order to represent the relationship, we use dark line, right? So there are some rules and regulations for weak entity. Rule number 1 is owner entity set and weak entity set both must participate in one to many, compulsory one to many relationship be there. That means one owner and many weak entities. If there is no owner, then this mother and children with whom ID they will go to hospital or they will acquire the policy. So compulsory there should be one to many relationship set. Next point is weak entity set must have total participation. As I said that there should be total participation. What is total participation? Compulsory they should depend upon, or all the dependents, or all they should have at least one employee, have total participation in their identifying relationship set. So these are the rules. Again we have described in red letter rhymes. So for this one more example is taken in banking, where loan and payment is taken. Here can you say what is weak entity? Weak entity is payment, right? Payment don't have any payment ID. Okay, payment depends upon loan. By using loan only we can identify what type of payment he went. Hence the relationship also becomes weak, right? So which is described in double lines. So as I said that the relationship is one to many. So compulsory there should be a line between loan and payment towards loan, right? Next one is we are switching on to some more relationships and of ER model. Out of that, aggregation is one of the relationship. Aggregation, or it is also known as is a hierarchy or is a relationship. So when we have a connection between one or more entities, then we can go with is a relationship. This is a relationship is also known as aggregation. What is this aggregation? Sometimes a single entity alone does not make any sense in the relationship. So this entity will divide into two or many more entities by using a relationship called is a relationship. Consider an employee. Sometimes you want an employee to be further divided. So what you must do? So you are going to classify the employees into two types. They are hourly employees and contract employees. Okay. So what is the relationship that you want to give between them, right? So I am going to divide this into two parts. Then I must establish a relationship that is named as is a relationship. If I split into something like this, employee is an hourly employee. This employee is a contract employee. In this way, we are going to specify a relationship. This is one type of relationship, and this type of relationship is known as aggregation. In this, Splitting, when we do splitting, we are having two types of constraints, constraints or conditions that we need to meet. First one is overlap constraint. When will you overlap? If there is some commonalities between these two entities. Can you tell me what are the two commonalities between these two entities? Yes, both are employed. So we are going to overlap this into an employee. This type of overlapping is from down to or bottom to up approach. Okay. Covering constraint. Covering constraint means we are splitting if there is any differences between them. Employee is having some differences. So these differences can be split into two parts, that is hourly employee and contract employee. So this is known as covering constraints. So why I am saying this too means sometimes I will get data like hourly employees contracts. So your duty is you must use overlapping constraint and give one name for that. That means you need to go for bottom to top approach. Sometimes we will get employees, only just employees. So according to the data and according to the design that you want to do, sometimes you may need to split that employees. So then you can go for top to bottom approach. These are the two constraints that we can use in aggregation. So this is the definition of aggregation. Aggregation allows us to treat a relationship set as an entity set, right? So we are having one more definition just like this. That means aggregation allows a relationship to participate in another relationship. See, this is ternary relationship. Why I am saying ternary relationship means because here we are having more than two relationship. See here, if I use two entities and one relationship, then it is known as binary relationship. If I use more than two entities, then it is known as ternary relationship. So here an example is being taken. Projects are sponsored by department. Projects are sponsored by departments, and this overall projects that are being sponsored by departments overall is monitored by an employee. So when you get like situations like this or sentences like this or data like this, then you must go for a type of relationship that is known as aggregation. That means a relationship that is seen by another relationship or undertaken by another relationship. So this projects and department projects that is being sponsored by the department is monitored by few employees. Okay, so we can do like this. When I give an attribute to a relationship, this type of attribute is known as descriptive attribute, right? So since and until specify some dates, and these are known as descriptive attributes. What are descriptive attributes? Descriptive attributes that describes about a relationship is known as descriptive attributes. So there is a little bit just a difference between aggregation and ternary relationship. Here when we use aggregation, just we will be saying that how a particular entity is involved in this. But when we say ternary relationship, or how to modify a binary relationship into ternary relationship, that means when you are having more than two entities that should be described by one entity, then you should go for ternary relationship. So that's it for this today's class. Tomorrow in the next class we will be saying some more features of ER model.